Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, or welcome if you are new to my channel. Glad you're here. Of course, today we got another 1980 horror movie review video as part of my overall 1980s horror movie series, an ongoing series on my channel where I'm going to be taking a look at just about all the big movies from every single year of the decade of the 1980s, the entire decade. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the movie that I chose to review for today from 1980. And this is an interesting movie. Again, another first time watch for me that I was able to get on DVD. And that movie is, from my standard DVD collection, The Attic from 1980. I don't know how well you guys can see that. It's pretty standard DVD. There's no special features or anything on it. Um, but yeah, The Attic from 1980. Um, yeah, very interesting movie. Let's go ahead and get into it. So, The Attic is a 1980 American psychological horror drama film. I would say it's a psychological drama film with some horror elements in it. It's directed by George Edwards and it stars Carrie Snodgrass and Ray Milland. So basically, the movie opens where we're introduced to Louise Elmore, who's a depressed alcoholic spinster who works as a head librarian in Wichita, Kansas. Since her fiance, Robert, disappeared the day before their wedding 19 years ago, Louise has devoted herself to caring for her infirm, abusive father, Wendell, who is confined to a wheelchair. After suffering a nervous breakdown and starting a fire inside the library, Louise resigns from her position and begins training her younger incoming replacement, Emily Perkins. Following the fire, Louise attempted suicide by slashing her wrists, but survived. Louise and Emily quickly become friends, but Emily shows empathy toward Louise. And Emily shows empathy toward Louise. At home, Louise continually has fantasies about taking revenge against her father, sometimes going so far as murdering him. Um, One night, Louise goes to the movie theater alone where she meets Richard, a sailor. After the movie, Louise returns to his hotel with him and the two have sex. The next day, Louise and Emily spend the morning shopping together. After noticing that Louise expresses affection for a chimpanzee in a pet store window, Emily covertly covertly goes into the store and purchases the animal as a gift. Louise brings the chimpanzee home, much to Wendell's reluctance, and names him Dickie. Emily confides in Louise about her boyfriend who recently relocated to California and who wants her to join him there. Emily is reluctant to leave Kansas, but Louise insists that she should, citing the state of her own life as evidence. So yeah, that's to set up the premise for The Attic from 1980. As far as the cast goes, we have Carrie Snodgrass as Louise Elmore, Ray Milland as Wendell, Ruth Cox as Emily Perkins, Rosemary Murphy as Mrs. Perkins, and Frances Bay as the librarian. So yeah, that's to set up the premise and the cast from the 1980 psychological drama horror movie The Attic. Um, as I said, this is an interesting movie because it's not really a horror movie. There's like 10 or 15 minutes of this movie that you could say it's thriller horror, more elements, but the overall movie is much more of a psychological drama. It's not a bad movie, but I am reviewing it on a horror channel, so I have to keep that in mind. But there are a lot of good things about the movie. Let's start with what I liked about the movie. You got to start with the main character of Louise Elmore. Is it's easily the best and most engaging part of the movie, in my opinion, both from the depth of the character through the writing and the performance, especially of Carrie Snodgrass, which is fantastic. You really feel for this character and really want things to turn out well for her. It's just a very relatable, for a lot of people, very relatable character, a likable character that has got a little snarkiness to her, has a backstory to her, a very sad, kind of tragic backstory, and being abused by her father at the same time. Um, but yeah, it's just one of those characters that you really like and want to see good things for. Yeah, I thought Carrie Snodgrass, so I haven't seen her in anything else. She is very good at carrying this movie, frankly, and this main character. Um, Besides that, the ending 15 minutes or so, I really when the ending 15 minutes of the movie or so, or when things are revealed, are pretty intense, memorable, and emotionally engaging. It has a tough ending overall, but that's really where your thriller slash horror elements come into play. I would say, are in the final 15 minutes of this movie. Even though there are some moments of like fantasy murders that happen throughout the movie. It's really the final 15 minutes or so where those horror aspects of this movie come out, and I think they're really well done when the reveals are given, and just the psychosis of certain characters. You don't forget it. Let's just put it that way. That's why it's memorable and also emotional. The movie does a good job of touching on themes like manipulation, abuse, and psychosis. And I thought it was presented and executed in a very relatable but yet respectful way for people that experience those things, unfortunately. The different relationships that Louise has in the movie between her, Louise and Emily, Louise and Wendell, her dad, even Louise and Dickie, this chimpanzee, they feel very authentic. Good chemistry between the characters and good performances across the board that really make these relationships work and really bring the story to life in this movie. I also enjoy the various fantasies Louise has of killing her father in different ways. Obviously, that's an important aspect of this story, showing her psychosis and sort of being on the edge of insanity, and how fragile she is. Also, we enjoy seeing her dad get his, even though he really doesn't, just in these sort of fantasy dreams that she carries out. Um, and then finally, I like the fact that you have this other character of Emily, played by Ruth Cox, who's basically a younger version of Louise. I think that also plays well in the overall story and psychosis of Louise. I also have to say, Ruth Cox, the actress that played Emily, was a very beautiful actress. She was pretty easy to follow and hard to take your eyes off of. But yeah, like I said, not a lot of horror pros other than the last 15 minutes or so, but as a movie, I think it's good and it works. But definitely more of a psychological drama kind of movie. But it's pulled off mostly by Louise Elmore, that character played by Carrie Snodgrass. Also, Ray Milland is really good at playing a bad guy. He's older in this movie. He plays Wendell, her father, who's in the wheelchair. Yeah, the performances are good. So getting on to some of the cons for this movie, the things that I didn't like, I think the movie's mismarketed, even by this cover here. The tagline in the cover, it sounds like a true horror movie throughout rather than what it is, which is a psychological drama. So that's going to throw off somebody that's interested in watching this movie and maybe has some expectations for it. Um, they're going to get something different than what they expect, and all you have to do is look at this. The cover here, you see this like this monkey with these symbols here in blood. There is a chimpanzee in the movie, but this cover really doesn't really. The movie's not really about what this cover shows so much, and then especially the tagline 13 steps to terror, that really doesn't play at all in the movie. So again, I think the movie's marketed as a horror thriller movie, and it's really more of a drama movie, a psychological drama movie. So, from a marketing standpoint, they really dropped the ball there. It is a very slow burn kind of movie with much more drama than action packed horror or thrills. It takes its time to lay things out regarding the characters and the story. So, you just kind of have to keep that in mind going into it. It has a bit of a TV quality feel to it, both in terms of the aspect ratio and the camera work in the movie. It kind of feels like something you might see on Lifetime or a USA movie back in the day when USA did more movies back in like the 90s or early 2000s. Um, of course, based on what I'm saying, there's no real blood, gore, or nudity. It's not a visceral horror movie in that way, or even a visceral thriller, psychological thriller movie. And then finally, I would say the movie's a little bit longer than it needed to be. I think it's 101 minutes when it probably could have been cut down 10 or 15 minutes. There are some pacing issues as a result of that, but those are my cons for The Attic from 1980. Overall, though, guys, I can't say this is a bad movie. It might be a bad movie for some like true horror people. Where you're going to get very little horror out of this movie, but I think it's very well done. in terms of the unfolding story, the characters, the acting, the directing. There's just a lot here that's good. The way that it's presented, the themes that it touched on, and really the emotional residency that it has because of the main character here. Um, you really feel for this character, and unfortunately, the ending doesn't do much to not feel for without giving away um any spoilers. Also, there are some reveals that happen that I didn't see coming, frankly. I think the movie does a good job of setting them up in that way. So this was kind of a hard one to rate because this is a horror movie channel and this is less of a horror movie. But I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10 overall. I think it's worth a one-time watch at least. Just go into it not you just have to know that you're not going to see a lot of gore, a lot of on-screen violence, or a lot of visceral horror. um you got to sit down and be ready for more of an unfolding story with well written and well acted characters and a lot of interesting themes. So as long as you go into it with those expectations, I do recommend this movie. And again, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 for The Attic from 1980. So with that being said, please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for this 1980 part of my 1980s horror movie series, or any of my other great horror content that I have coming out starting in August here in just a week or so. So, with that being said, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're enjoying this 1980s movie review series so far. And as always, stay scared. Bye.